Good evening, all. Still in New Zealand. Just finished, just got home. It's late. It's like 11 p.m. New Zealand time. Long day of battle hardened. The final actually ended up going over the time allocated for the venue. They had to film and play the finals in another location. Anyway, congrats to Cale McCreath on Bravo. He won, took it home, went undefeated, 10-0. Gold foil Shukos, I believe, is what he won. I won't get too much into the battle hard. It was a great, amazing charity event. There was a charity auction, all that kind of stuff. I'm making a video because this is now a drama channel. Not really. I'm obviously in New Zealand. Some dramas happened in the community. I wouldn't even call it drama. I think some people create drama out of this, but it's Compete Sport, run by George, was bans even too strong of a word. They've been suspended as a gem store, meaning they can't run sanctioned events and they can't get armory promos. They can still buy stock from the distributor. They can do whatever they want. Sell stock, run events, but LSS's support for Compete is finished. They're not sanctioning events in that store. There's a couple of look. There's an article out there that basically has a good opinion where this is not the first store to get banned. It's just the first one people are talking about because they might know George or like George because of the Kitchen Table TCG podcast, May This Be With You, which has had its own share of drama in the past. I've called them out before for using the A Flesh and Blood podcast to shill other games. That's a whole nother thing. Other stores have been banned before. LSS has not treated Compete or George in a different manner as they've done with any other store they've removed from the gem system, whether it's for selling promos, whether it's for running events where players weren't turning up, whether it's they've had sexual harassment complaints, whatever the reason may be. LSS has never put out the reason publicly. George has released the email that LSS sent him. It actually tells you all the reasons you need to know. You probably haven't read it if you're still on the fence about thinking there's some deeper conspiracy, like they don't like George because he talked bad about their game or something. I'm going to make that the first point. LSS banned George, and in this case, removed Louis from the content creator program because they talk bad about the game. That's rubbish. Anyone who knows, who's in the program, knows that a lot of people get removed for very different reasons. If you don't post enough content, if the content's not quality, high enough. Also, sometimes they just literally have too many content creators for the amount of stuff that they can preview and they don't give it out to people. There's no whitelist or blacklist. I can tell you now, if you keep harassing them and asking or posting publicly that you're entitled to a promo, you 100% will not get one because it's not something you're entitled to. But the removal, the banning, people talking crap. Let me give some examples. Saints talked bad. He's made one of his best viewed videos was Fab Winter is Here. He talks badly about Monarch print numbers. He talks badly about Tales of Aria being too readily available. Blah blah blah. There's a lot of negativity out there. I've threatened to quit the game on Twitter because I feel like Icelander's not very balanced in Blitz, and there's some mechanics that people just aren't abusing yet, but when they realize is a thing, they will abuse to no end and will make me want to quit the game. No one's banned me off anything. Louis and George have been talking negatively about Flesh and Blood for over a year. No one banned them. No one removed Compete Sport from the gem system. Louis himself owns a store that runs events, and he's still not banned even though he's associated with George. So all of that is rubbish. I'm trying to think of some more examples. I'm awfully tired, like 7 hours of CC will do that to you. I also get like sinus issues when I travel. Who's the other really negative ones? Like plenty of negative content creators, as in content creators that have made content calling out LSS, saying the bans are crap. Like Kugani's one of them. Kugani's negative all the freaking time. They send him content creator promos. You're allowed to say whatever you want. I think there's an underlying issue, a deeper issue I'm going to delve into, but it's not that. That's rubbish because really if you look around, there's plenty of content creators that are very supported. There's plenty of stores that are very well supported by LSS. They're a small business. Like, why would they want to remove a customer? Why? Ask yourself that. It's not just because someone's talking crap about them. That's the good example. Open boosters, Unhinged Magi talk a whole lot of shit about LSS. a whole lot, like a lot of crap. They're very, 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 very negative on Fab, or have been in the past. Open Boosters got sent an Uprising box. He was the first one in the world to open it on camera. What is wrong with you people saying that you can't talk negative about LSS? They'll ban you next. Content creators have to, like, also people pointing at me, going like I'm somehow in cahoots with LSS. Man, my whole channel is I'm a fan of Fab and I open the product. Of course I love the product. Of course I defend it. I talk crap all the time. Would I push my audience, or would I jump on and use my small megaphone to talk crap about a company that I love and support the product? No, I wouldn't. It's the same thing as if I was married. I wouldn't bitch to you about my wife. I would talk to her about our problems. Like, I spoke with James for a long time when I landed in New Zealand. Like 4 hours. We met in the office, and then we went and had lunch, and the lunch went to 4 p.m. Do you know how much negative stuff and improvements I asked him for and feedback I wanted? Do you know how long we talked about Starvo and the balancing issues and Icelander and double frostbite taxes? Like, we talked about it. I'm passionate about it. Should I be on here telling you all the negatives all the time, never anything positive? Because, by the way, I'm going to put a little hint out there. I would get more views if that's all I did. No, I don't think I should. But that's also not why LSS would choose to work with me or not, or send me promos or not. To be honest, I don't care if they send me promos or not. That's the whole point. Most of the content creators that get them don't care. It's just a little thank you from them for the free marketing they get on our channels, and it helps them stay in touch with us and also stay in touch with their community in like a low cost way. Guess who has to ship all the promos? Me. Guess who has to do the giveaway? Me. Like, they don't have to run all that. It's like a mutually beneficial relationship. That's why there's a point where you can talk crap about them as much as you want. But another example is Tulare Community College is not associated with Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast. Rudy, Alpha Investments, not associated with Wizards of the Coast. Why? Because I talk a lot of crap about that company, and it ends up being a scenario Wizards of the Coast go, we don't want to work with this content creator because they talk crap about us. That's allowed in and of itself. Like, I don't think LSS do it the way Wizard does it. But anyway, let's talk about the recent video. So I'm not going to get into every detail. May the Zoo Be With You podcast, George got on there. He's obviously been removed from the GEM program. He posted the email on his website. It's all there. I'm not going to rehash. I think what's important here before we get started, I can't read the transcript of that video, but you need to listen to it verbatim. Stop like listening to people's version. He was just speculating about print numbers and that's what got him banned. That's not even close to the truth. So verbatim, I wrote this down. Some key words. In the video, the original video that got George banned, inverted commas, 3 people tell me, is in quotes because he said that, 200 to 250,000 boxes at Channel Fireball. Inside scoop. The word speculating was never ever used in that video, by the way. Inside scoop was used, but speculation was not used. And LSS forcing Channel Fireball Sasso to take stock, something along those lines. They're the key things I want to touch on here. 3 people told him, George, you'll probably watch this. Who? Your wife and Louie's wife? And Louie? That's the 3 people? Like, who, actually? Because I know clearly way more information about the CFB takeover than you do, and I'm not even American or involved or give a fuck, to be honest. I still know more because I'm actually in touch with people, and I find this shit very interesting, and it's, I'm a collector. I like to know what's going on. I'm definitely very interested in the TCG player stuff more than the Channel Fireball stuff. So what 3 people told you? No, by the way, what I'm trying to say is no 3 people have told him. George has a habit, if you dig through his stuff, to look, he's a sales guy. I've been in sales all my life, so I understand the nomenclature that salespeople use. He's trying to tell you what he thinks. He will use words without like guaranteeing or promising or saying he knows for a fact, but he will make everything sound like he knows for a fact, but there's no proof. Please provide proof. If 3 people told you that CFB have 200 to 250,000 booster boxes. Now, very quick research here. 200 to 250,000 boxes is impossible. It's completely impossible. And by the way, I'm skimming over detail because I'm assuming some of you have watched this thing unfold, but I'll explain. I believe, because I haven't watched the full video either. Yes, I haven't watched it. I would never watch that whole podcast. It's fucking degenerate. It's terrible. although George is very entertaining as a person, it's just the amount of negativity and shit piling because they're scorned lovers of a game that they supposedly love, which is actually just them not making money off the game, so they hate it and want to do MetaZoo and other stuff now, is just like rubbish to watch. It's rubbish content. Anyway, 250,000 booster boxes is 33 40-foot containers full of boxes, right? That's like a football field, an American football field full of boxes. Channel Fireball did not have that many boxes at any given point. I've dug around, they didn't have it, they don't have it. So you saying that you knew for a fact that they had that many boxes and what was in the paperwork or in the deal was less than that and it's rubbish and it's a lie. Let me explain the damage that does. You may not know this if you don't own a business or whatever, but if you're just speculating on the number, that's fine. You saying 3 people told you and you strongly believe this number, but stating it as fact. Like, you stated it as fact, George. You didn't say, I don't know, you didn't double guess, you just said it's fact. First of all, it means you don't have a clue how the CFB takeover happened. You also don't understand that CFB sold their unlimited fab stock months before the takeover. Months before. They didn't have any unlimited left, to be honest. They had nothing left. I know that for a fact because I know who bought it. So you don't know shit, is what I'm trying to say. So he tries to sound like an expert, but he isn't actually in touch with people. And then the people that are in touch with people, like what LSS know or what someone like me knows, who generally makes friends along the way and has these conversations, would know or hears in the grapevine from actual reliable sources. Usually doesn't talk about it because it's not my business. I would never want to speculate or talk about some multi-million-dollar deal that I'm not invested in, especially in a way that it could hurt. So let me tell you why this stuff, and by the way, again, this is not the primary reason or the only reason why George may have been let go from the gem system. I explain the actual problem with him saying stuff like this. If you're a small LGS in the US and you maybe trust George and you have some unlimited stock, but he's saying, no, CFB have way more stock than people know or think, your reaction might be to fire sell your stock, which remember was the whole problem we had with CFB not that long ago, which was them fire selling stock and how harmful it is to the community and the game and the smaller LGSs that can't get stock. It's just actually materially untrue. But the problem with it is it has an actual material commercial effect on LSS and their distribution and their customers. Because if you're going around spouting false information that sounds like there's more stock than there is in the market, stores that can make money off that stock might try and fire sell it. Let me explain something too, and I'm not saying George is smart enough to do this, but it's possible that this can be done, is if you disseminate that kind of information to convince other people to sell their stock low because there's way more of it about to hit the market, and then you, as a person who sells stock in flesh and blood, buys it and knowing that there's not that much stock left, which means the pricing might end up being higher, means you're set to make a pretty penny. George is in that business. He's been in management consulting, according to him, for a long time. That's like market manipulation shit. It's not illegal when it comes to the card world. It's very illegal in the share market, even though it still happens because people do shorts and stuff. You know, if you know, you know. But there was no inside scoop. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no inside scoop. That number's materially false. It doesn't exist. That's not what happened. CFB, when they sold to TCG player, probably only had Uprising stock in stock. That I know for a fact. I'd love someone to prove me wrong, but they had very, very, very little stock of anything. Definitely all the unlimited stuff they were fire selling along with Uprising is gone. It's well gone. It was bought. I know who bought it. It's that simple. Why won't I prove it? There's no onus on me to prove anything. George made this claim. Show proof. There's no proof because it's not fact. That's the whole point. If you talk to a lawyer, though, making claims like that when you're involved, so you're in the system, you're involved in the system, yes, you have a megaphone, but you also have a contract with your distribution and you also have customers. You making comments like that is grounds for going to court, being sued, losing contracts. Is you're potentially harming another company. That's illegal in and of itself. There's words for it. I don't know in America what they call it, but you definitely can't just go around spouting bullshit with no proof because someone could call you on it legally. LSS don't do that. They just go, okay, you are whinging about the game. You say you don't make profit, blah, blah, blah. Well, don't have the game anymore. We'd prefer to cut ties with you. That's all they did. They didn't like come out publicly and show anything. They didn't sue him. They've just gone, hey, enough. But there's malicious intent if that's why you're doing it. There's no way to prove or not, but you can definitely prove that that statement could result in commercial damage to the company. Like actual bottom line shit. Like, if people lose faith in your product because someone like George is out there saying there's 250,000 boxes more than actually exist, and that he knows because 3 people told him, inside scoop. Anyway, I hope you sort of carry on what I'm saying there, but to say that those speculation, which was not speculation, again, please don't fucking take my word for it. Go listen to the video itself. I will try and post a screenshot of the transcript because I got one before making this video because I don't want to go and say crap. He did not say speculating. He said 3 people told him. Why would you say 3 people told him? Why? Like, if you're speculating, why not just say speculating? Say 3 people told me to say, like, oh, this is corroborated evidence. That's what you're trying to say, which means, again, you're stating it as fact. You're saying 3 people told you so that you take the pressure off yourself or the, like, burden of proof on yourself because you're just talking crap. And it's fine. Like, talking crap on the internet is a thing, right? But you're commercially involved with the business and they don't want to be commercially involved with you. It's not rocket science as to why LSS might cut ties over this. But let me explain something. That's not the thing that happened or the only thing that happened. There's, I believe, quite a lot more mistruth and stuff that happened. I know a key one is 2 main ones. One key one is how much George talks about his local player base and how big it is and successful and how early he got in the game, and the love he has for the game is usually backed up by how big his LGS is for Fab. That's not true. I don't believe George has... Well, what I'm trying to say is I know George doesn't run large events. I know the player base is not tiny, but it's nowhere near even... wouldn't even be top 10 in the US for amount of players weekly. Like, we're talking 10 people in Armory. Again, it's easy to say that on the internet, but George can... Anytime he wants to back up that he does more than that, I'm not talking skirmishes and big events. I'm talking like on a weekly amount, your grassroots, whether it was bigger in WTR or not, these days it's not big. He does not promote the game in a big way, does not have a big fan base. By the way he talks, you know that he's not deep into Fab anymore. There's not much bigger one. He should have been banned for this alone. LSS have known about this for a while because I told them. But they never took action about it. And sorry, when I say I told them, like, I didn't like send an email and go, hey, you should cancel George, blah, blah, blah. I told them, like, I speak to LSS employees all the time and they're aware that this happened. And it's not just from me, but I definitely confirmed something that they've heard of. And it's none of their business, actually, this particular one, but it's why I would ban them. George has a habit of pretending to sell stock on behalf of someone else, usually singles in the secondary market, either by claiming that it's for a friend on consignment, or he'll say that he'll go on for a friend on consignment, and he'll say like that friend's going through a divorce, whatever, so it's like a timing, good deal, private, big deal. Now, he's done that for like every whale that's ever entered the community. Everyone. Again, George, feel free to offer proof that you haven't, because I have so much fucking evidence of that. It's hilarious. We're talking, he sends an email to a rich person that joins the Fab community. I'm not going to name them because most of these guys are fairly private. I know them because I'm usually in talks with them when it's any high-end deal, like alpha boxes, cases, gold foils. I middleman a lot of this stuff, especially because I'm in Australia, closer to New Zealand. It plays into it. We're talking a 2-page long email with a big backstory going, my friend's getting out of the game, or someone I know is getting out of the game. These are on consignment. He's got like a list of all these alpha hearts and alpha boxes. And we're talking, guys, we're talking seven figures in stock here, like not small amounts of money. And when you delve through the email, you quickly see like he's got Heart of Findles for $85,000 US. Heart of Findle never, ever once sold for $85,000. The largest sale that we can't even confirm is allegedly $50,000 USD, okay? For a raw Heart of Findle cold foil that was at the peak. We don't even believe that one sold. The owner buyer. No one's corroborated that. No one's seen it happen. $85,000 a heart. It's got like 8 hearts in this. But then if you look at his post history, he will post that stuff as if it's his too. He'll say they're his. So just lying like that, by the way, just lying and saying it's not my stock when it is, or whether it isn't his stock and he's claiming it is, whichever one is true, it's irrelevant. The amount of sharking and trying to rip off these multimillionaire collectors that may be interested in the game is fucking atrocious. Like, it's the reason I disassociated with Louis and George very quickly when I started finding this stuff out. Because some of that stuff they tried to do to me, I'll get into it. But yes, it happened to me. It's very obvious. I have receipts. I'm not going to show you. There's no point showing the audience, like the public. If you don't believe me, that's fine. But let George say that I'm lying first. Then I'll prove it. That's easy. It's very easy to prove because it happened. I can show you more than one email that has him attempting to solicit a large amount of money from a new collector who may not know better, charging enormous upmark on price. Now, it's a free market. You do whatever you want, right? If you love the game, if your motivation is not money, it's passion. If he doesn't need money, why is he trying to sell hearts for $85,000 to people that joined the game yesterday? You know what I mean? Like large collectors and stuff. That to me is shows more of the character. Now the reason I throw Louis in the same conversation is obviously people usually know George off the podcast. May the Zoo be with you. And the reason I bring Louis up is they're a team more or less on that podcast. But also Louis, I've accused publicly of doing this stuff where he had the price collector and pricing of certain things would be way lower than market. And I even picked up on one that was damaged because I looked up buying that card. I believe it was bought on eBay and sold for a very, very low amount of money. Like $4,000 it was for an Eye of Ophidia, which became a meme for a while. Every time someone posted a cold for Eye, everyone offered $4,000 because nobody was fucking selling them $4,000 at the time. That's the point. And when I called Louis on it privately, which again, I have receipts, but I'd like Louis to tell me I'm lying publicly so I can bury the shit and go, no, here's proof. But the proof's irrelevant because you believe whatever you want. I accused Louis of using the price tracker to sometimes manipulate certain price items so he could buy them cheaper personally. And I do strongly believe that more than just Louis would benefit from that. Whether Louis is oblivious to the fact or not that that's super immoral and unethical, he still admitted to doing it inadvertently. Like, he bought an eye for $4,000 right after posting his video saying that they're $4,000, even though I showed him that the eye that sold for $4,000 was like irreparably damaged and ungradable. Like, it was bad. It was in very, very bad shape. Someone had played with it, sleeve in, sleeve out, sleeve in, sleeve out, like an early player. I believe it even had a ding, like something you'd get out of a magnetic case or something. Terrible, terrible condition eye. Like half of what a raw one was at the time. But Louis still posted that price and still was also playing the market. Whether he did it on purpose or not, I cut ties with the whole tracker and everything, because if you're going to post the tracker and also play in the market, you're probably not going to do it ethically. And even if you're trying to do it ethically, people may perceive it as like a conflict of interest, because if you have any power to manipulate the market, it's very tempting to do that for self-gain. NFTs, MetaZoo, crypto in general, there's a lot of that bro culture. A lot of the it's very unethical the way some of this stuff happens. That's very much, I believe, personally, my opinion, those guys' motivations is make money. And in a capitalist type of thing, mentality, if someone buys it for $85,000, they don't feel bad because it's not just a sucker. Like, that person should know better. Same as if I put the price as $4,000, people don't do their own research. That's their fault. Because at the start of my video, I say it's just my opinion. But when those videos were getting 2,000 views and I don't know how many Patreon subscribers he had for the tracker, people were using that as the gospel for prices. I back on topic. Why did they cut ties with George? I believe it's a mixture of those things. I believe he doesn't run the events he says he runs, and he's not as big in the community because LSS would know that. I believe he makes up information about print numbers and stuff. Yes, he's talking with his friend on a podcast, but again, he's also a store owner. So as a store owner who's saying all these numbers that he has inside information, a scoopy or whatever he called it, a scoop, 3 people told him, he knows, strongly believes it, which stuff is materially untrue. There is commercial damage to be made, and I believe that's the primary reason why, like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's like something where Ellis looks at it and goes, there's no way that 3 people told him, because it's fucking impossible. You know what I mean? Even like simple stuff like him getting, like him saying that CFB probably get 50% of the print run, when there's actually no way. If you do some quick maths, they'd probably get like 5-10% of a print run, including Monarch First Edition. There's another little tidbit that was brought to my attention from a distributor. When you're a distributor, you have to keep stock. So let's say Monarch First Edition comes out, people in the distribution industry that have account managers, salespeople trying to get new accounts, they keep a pallet of Monarch First Edition. It's not to flip. It's simply to make sure when they get a new account on board that wants to buy Flesh and Blood, they have something to give them for the current set. So for months after Monarch comes out, these big distributors do not list every single one of their boxes. They list what they do on the website. If it sells out, like no distributor and no retailer lists all their stock on a website. They just don't. It's not because they're trying to necessarily profit. It's because it's like there's minimum order quantities, and there's like triggers when you run to a certain level of stock. You want the system to tell you to reorder. So you never really want to sell out of stuff in a retail environment. You want to get low and have time to order before you sell out completely. So most stores, if you run a store, you know this. That's why some of this shit that these guys spout on their podcast shows you they run stores terribly, or they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about. You would list 8 boxes if you have 16, and when the 8 sell, you immediately list them again. And yes, that gives you an opportunity to put the price up, because maybe you're under market and you check your competitors and go, oh crap, I could put them up by $50. Sure, like, it's your right to do that. You own the fucking stock and the store, and it's your responsibility to pay your own bills, so you do that. And then it sells out, right? So yeah, if the distributor keeps adding stock, it's usually that. It's usually like MOQs and wanting to hold stock till it, in a way that lets you reorder from LSS, as an example, before you run out. So you give yourself a buffer. And yeah, if they ever post stock up again, a lot of times that's just stock that they had left over from new accounts they wanted to onboard. Monarch, I think we were under 2,000 stores when Monarch hit, and by Tails there were like 3,000 stores. So I can imagine that some Monarchs stock got held back to go to those, And you know what? If they don't take them, if the stock's sitting there for 90 days or whatever the cutoff period that particular distributor feels like is reasonable, which with Monarch probably would have happened, then yeah, they release the stock back to customers that want it. I've had on very, very good authority that no one was hoarding Monarch the way people are claiming they were hoarding Monarch, by the way. It's just FUD. But I'm sure some of it's true. But also, if you did buy Monarch at a stupidly inflated price, you probably have George to thank for that. George was a one-man hype machine for Monarch to 1K, if you guys have forgot that. But it's easy for them to talk crap about LSS and the print run numbers and blah, blah, blah. But they only do that because they didn't make $1,000 on Monarch. If you can't see that interaction, yeah, it's not lost on me. I know how much hyping the George and Louis team did for Fab, but not hyping the game, like hyping the pricing and trying to get the free tendies, which they didn't, because they're not actually good at what they do. So they've lost money on Fab and now won out, and that's been obvious for a year to me as a fan, like not as a whatever you think I am. As a fan of Louis, I started noticing very quickly that the minute he wasn't making flip money, he moved to Medizit. It was very simple. That's most of it. One last thing. Let me explain something to George, because maybe George and I had a private conversation about this a long, long time ago. I didn't have enough information then, so I told him I'd dig, and I did some digging. George doesn't like LSS and has been talking shit about LSS for a long time for one particular reason, the main one, other than everything I've mentioned. And it's because he doesn't get to deal with LSS directly. He was one of the first stores to onboard Fab. He ran a lot of learn to play events. He sold Monarch at cost price, not at cost, at like MSRP or whatever. Basically, he did the right thing early on. He claims to have and expected that he would, when LSS finally brought distribution on board, that he would be given direct to LSS distribution, which means more profit and access to more stock. That didn't happen. George himself told me that's a big problem for him. He wants to stop. He basically told me the reason he doesn't push Fab much anymore is because of that fact. And that is the answer from James was very dry or whatever, that he didn't get treated the way he should have as someone who was pivotal in the growth of the game. Whether that's true or not, let me explain something. There's 3 companies right now outside of New Zealand. Australia doesn't get this anymore. 3 companies outside of New Zealand that get stock directly from LSS. 2 of them, it's very fucking obvious why. They are the organized play partners for LSS that run all their big events. Channel Fireball, Star City Games. They're the only 2 out of the 3 that it's very, very obvious because they have direct contracts with LSS. They also need to be given stock without a middleman, because if you're running like a world premiere or a calling or whatever, the stock has to be there on time. Adding a middleman distributor who also wants to add a margin to the product just doesn't work in the card world. Sometimes you need the cards to go from the printer straight to the tournament organizer for that stuff to actually work. If you saw the Uprising World Premiere, there were delays. That would not have happened if there was a distributor in the middle. So keep that in mind. That's the main thing. Who do you think the third one is? So there's 3. Rudy Alpha Investments is the third one. Why? I think it's obvious if you follow the space. If you don't, let me explain. Basically, Alpha came out and went nowhere. WTR Alpha. There was no price hike. It just some stores picked it up. Very, very few stores. We're talking dozens of stores were picking it up. And a lot of them were in New Zealand and Australia, not because, locale helps. This was right before COVID. This is what I understand from like looking at things. Arcane Rising comes out. So WTAP came out, didn't work very well, and that's when a lot of when I say didn't work very well, the traction was slow because it's another new card game, right? It's always going to be slow. There's a lot of effort on like LSS's part to get more stores on board and the buy box promos and everything they did, and then Arcane Rising pre-release comes to like the dates come up, and that's when COVID restrictions happened. Like nearly no one got to an Arcane Rising pre-release. That set was not played much. My understanding is if Rudy hadn't picked up the game and put it in front of 200,000 people on his YouTube channel and his Patreon and sent out the WTR kits and the Arcane Rising kits, the game wouldn't exist. It's that simple. It was COVID. The game was new. They needed money. And at the end of the day, if no one's buying your product and COVID hits all at the same time and you're a startup more or less, remember, like a lot of this stuff is funded by James White himself and investors that he has. Some of them work in the company. Rudy's probably the only reason the game exists. So you'd expect that maybe he would get special treatment, right? The problem is, and also Rudy's he's a huge marketing machine for the game. Hey, he's the best content creator to talk about. He talks so much crap about LSS and he's still part of the program. They don't care if you talk crap about him. Let me tell you, they got thick skin. They don't care. Rudy would not be getting promos and stuff and exclusive play mats and everything that he gets if LSS cared that someone talked crap about them. Watch every single Rudy video the last 6 months about Flesh and Blood. It's overwhelmingly negative. Like, not like doom and gloom, but he doesn't he doesn't hold his punches back. He talks as much crap as he wants all the time. That's also why we watch him. He just says the truth. Like, he definitely doesn't care about hyping the game only. He actually talks way more negatively about Fab. Even to the point where he's wrong. Like, talk about Uprising singles dropping. Like, no, they haven't crashed Rudy. if you see what people are playing in the meta, it's just a more players game than a collector's game now. It's very easy to spot why like Alluvian Castellus is crap compared to Shuko. The ninja's really popular. Alluvian Castellus is a really specific niche need for a wizard, and already not a lot of people play wizard, so it's never going to be as equal in price. It hasn't crashed, it's just the excitement dies off, and until someone wins like a big event with wizard, with Alluvian in the mirror match, and people get to see it working, most people haven't even probably seen that card work yet, and they never played it to know if it's good or not, because it's not in the meta, so that's why. Anyway, moving on. George feels entitled to that treatment. I believe that. That's what he told me. I'm not even saying he's not entitled to it, but thinking you're entitled to it and getting rejected and then forming a negative opinion about that company and then being toxic about it online all the time and the doom and gloom and fear because you didn't get what you want is really childish. And that's what I'm going to leave this with. That's my opinion at the end. I believe these guys are cut off, Louis and George, because of children, not because I believe people like myself might be still on good terms with LSS. Pretty much no matter what we say publicly is because we're adults and we treat LSS like they know what they're doing, and we try and stay in our lane, and we speak negatively in a respectful way most of the time and don't try and cause actual damage to them because they're just also trying to eat and feed their families and run a successful business in the game. So we keep our damage doing to a minimum because it's not just as simple as like biting the hand that feeds us, because LSS doesn't give us that much that it matters. Like most of our channels would be successful whether they give us like promos or not. But there's also not that much negative to talk about. Definitely not, a couple of hours every week as it was for a while where the entire podcast would be negative. But I really do believe that. I believe there's like this childish entitlement, I'm not making money from flesh and blood mentality, which LSS don't actually care about. But when you mix that with actually spreading things that are not true, like your player numbers, and knowing information that's not true, that has a material and commercial consequence in the real world. Like if you look at it like I tried to explain, I probably did a terrible job at it because I'm like deliriously tired. But you can't go around saying that there's quadruple or quintuple the amount of boxes that are actually in existence and not know that can actually physically harm the game. And I'm going to leave this there too. I believe George keeps saying like, they have my number. Alan has my number. I would have appreciated a phone call. Would have wanted an email. It's all not true. Like he just would have still said exactly what he said. It works in reverse. Every issue I want to bring up with LSS, I email somebody. I email OP at FABTCG.com if it's organized play related. I email Chris Bewley if it's content related. If there's a typo in an article or whatever it may be. I have access to them. We all have access to them. Like they've emailed us, you know what I mean? George definitely has access to these people. He's the one that speaks publicly about everything before contacting LSS. That's because he has this platform and he uses it. But that does have a consequence in and of itself. That's what I mean by childish. It's like you can't bake your cake and eat it. You can't jump on a soapbox and talk and push and prod till, and then cross a line, a commercial line, where you're causing damage to a company potentially and not expect a consequence. The consequence is really soft in this case. It's like, we don't want to support your organized play anymore. Good luck to you. He always says he makes no profit. He said, by the way, bullshit number. I do this for a living. It's hilarious. I just hate lying, right? I do this for a living, meaning the negotiating and the lingo. Like he just made up a statistic off the top of his head. I fucking dare you to prove it, George. It's just not true. He said 1.8% of his profit is flesh and blood. Bull crap. If it's true, you wouldn't talk about it. Man, I don't talk about 1% of my fucking profit of anything. I wouldn't waste my breath. Why would you talk about it? That's like when people talk about their ex-wives, or their exes or whatever. Like they always bring up like all this negative, and you're like, you're pretty cut that she left you. Hey, like that's how I think. 1.8%, and you're talking about, how do you even have the energy to bring up 1.8% of your profit And he's like, oh, it's not even like my net worth, just the profit for the store. Dude, there's no way that's true. If that's true, why the fuck do you care if they cut you off the gem system? You lying fuck. Anyway, I know I'm swearing a lot. I'm tired, but it's also hilarious. Also, this stuff I'd say to his face. Like, I don't care. And just so you know, like, I'd say it to his face, like, as a person, I have no problem with him. It's the persona and the shit that we're talking about. This is what matters. There's no way it's 1.8%. It's such a lie. But you gotta, like, be... I don't know, I'm good at picking up the lies. Like, there's no way. You just wouldn't. And think about you as a person. Like, if you have $100 in your pocket, you don't spend a lot of time talking about the $1.80. Like, you just don't. No one does. No one cares. If your whole business is if your whole business is $100 a day and 1.8 of it is, you just wouldn't. Especially if you're rich, especially if you're successful, especially if you have a large business or you're, a well-off person or even financially comfortable. 1.8% would mean you'd already cut the game. Like, you already wouldn't deal with it. Why would you? Like, there's not that many. Think about it, guys. Like, add up all the games and the board games and tabletop and D&D. Like, add it all together. There's not 100 games. There's not. You got 50 games in the store? And you're saying one of them's only 1.8%? Why would you have it? But I don't think there's even 50. I think you would maybe have 10 games in this store. So you're saying out of 10 games, this one's only doing like 18% of the weight it should carry. Like 10 games, each game should be 10% of your revenue or profit, and this one's only doing 18% of 10%. What are you doing? He's supposedly a good businessman. He likes to give business advice all the time. So does Louis. I don't think either of them know how to run a business. I do, and I don't talk about it. And I don't. Like, what I'm saying is, I don't have the advice to give James. Like, I know my little world, my little circle. I know that. I do that, but I don't talk about it. I definitely don't say, hey, you guys should do this. I know better. Most people that know don't say things like that. But also, we talk with our wallets. Like, if I didn't want to support something or it only made me a tiny amount of money, I would just cut ties. That's it, walk away. Anyway, this has been a very long video. I don't know how long. I'll cut it off here, but that's my take. There are, I hope I gave you enough facts. I definitely can back up what I've said in regards to the emails and text messages. They're there. It's just irrelevant. I don't think you need to believe that to understand what's happened here. If George does feel like he wants to say that anything I said is untrue, I'm more than happy to prove him wrong. But it's irrelevant for the final outcome. No one's going to unban him. I don't think, unban him, put him back on Gem. I think he could do that. I genuinely believe if George wanted to fix things with LSS, he has every ability to. I don't think he wants to. I think he's wanted out or wanted to be the victim for a long time. Now he's the victim, a martyr. Like, you could pick whatever side you want, but the drama's completely unfounded. It's very, very obvious at face value when you dig, on one level deep, if you just dig a little bit, you can see what happened and why and who's lying. And the email's very clear from LSS. I believe it tells you exactly why they removed him from Gem. I clarified it a bit, I guess, if you needed an explanation, but I don't think you even need an explanation to get the hard truth out of this one. It's someone that is maliciously trying to hurt a company he has a commercial relationship with. It's that simple. I don't even know if there's a contract that he's broken. It's very likely in the contract that they can terminate at any point. It's just misconduct stuff, probably. But anyway, no more drama videos. I'll try and do some box openings soon. I'll be back in Australia, and I can't think of, other than Uprising, what I'll be doing. But there's a Spicy Thunder episode coming on Wednesday, so in 3 days. Subscribe to this video or unsub if you want to take sides. That's fine too. But yeah, Thunder Wednesday, very spicy guest, and I'll see you there. Thanks, guys.